Hey everybody, welcome back to your Pro Tools lesson. My name is McKay Tebbs, and today we're going to be talking about Pro Tools 101, Lesson 7, taking your workflow to the next level. And this is a lesson that's all about navigating and selecting in Pro Tools and to do it in a quick and effective way. We're going to be talking about things like the edit commands, and you probably know some of them, but there are more that can improve your workflow. We're going to talk about the different types of trim tools, including TCE trim and loop trim. TCE is time compression expansion trim. We're going to talk about fades, how to create fades. We're also going to talk about tabbing and all the variations of ways that you can tab in your session, and how to select tracks that are adjacent to each other and non-adjacent to each other, how to apply options to multiple tracks at once rather than one at a time, which can be very time consuming. So anyway, let's get started. So here's my Pro Tools session, and I just want to point out that you can click on the track names to select a track. And that's probably not big news for you, but that's what you have to do when you want to edit on the track. But the cool thing is you can edit more than one track at a time. So if I come here to track 2 and I do a separation edit, it's just affecting that one track. But what if I have to do that on both tracks? I can come and select both of them. If I hold down Shift while I click, now I've got both tracks selected, and look at my edit selection, how it's blinking and it's across both tracks. Now, if I do the command to separate, it will edit across both tracks. So that's shift clicking. You can shift click to add any number of tracks into your session you want. And if you want to save time, shift or click on the bottom track and then jump up to the higher track and shift click up there, and it will automatically select all tracks in between as well. So shift clicking can be a great way to select multiple tracks at once in your session that you need to work on. What if you're trying to work on a lot of tracks, but they're not next to each other? How do you skip tracks? If you want to skip tracks, then the way to select that is the command key. So you command click on tracks to skip tracks. And notice that when you do that, the edit cursor blinks across all those tracks you selected, but not the ones in between. It's just on the selected tracks, even though they're not right next to each other, they're not adjacent. So if you do an edit there, it's just going to select those 3 tracks that are not adjacent to each other. And the way you do that is command click. There's also one more selection edit that I want to tell you about, and it's the option click edit. If you click on one track and you hold down option and click, you will automatically select all the tracks in your session at once. So if you need to select all of them because you're doing something, you just hold down option. Also, option click will deselect all the tracks that you've selected. So option click to select all tracks, option click to deselect all tracks. A lot of times you're working on your ins and outs and you have to set them up for your session. So I have multiple tracks in the session, and here are my inputs. And if I come here, I can select input 1 and 2 for this stereo track, and it's selected on that track, but it's not selected on the next track. So in order to do that, I need to go through one at a time and select the input and output. But look how many tracks are in my session. Very cumbersome, and that could take a long time to do it that way. So there is a faster way to do that. And the way you do that is to option click. I'm going to option click on this next track. I'm holding down option, I'm clicking, and now you'll notice that all the rest of the tracks have been changed to input 1 and 2 without me having to change them. And that's all because I option clicked. Here, I'll do it backwards. Option click, no input, and now all the ins and outs of every track has been changed to no input. So this could be a big time saver because you have a lot of tracks to set up. And if some of those tracks have the same setup needs, then you hold down option and click on them, and then you can set them up and have it apply to all the tracks at once. Now, it's also possible to apply these multiple track settings to a certain range of tracks. Let's come down here at the bottom and let's use Shift to select a group of tracks. So right now, just this group of tracks is selected. And if I come up here to the inputs and I hold down Shift Option, then I will be able to apply that setting just to that group of tracks that I have selected and not to all of them. So if I'm working over here on the guitar tracks and I want the guitar tracks all to have the same inputs, I can hold down Shift Option, select their inputs, and now all the guitar tracks have that same input. And it's also possible to do this to things other than the inputs and outputs. For example, here I have the solo buttons, and if I option click on the solo buttons, I can solo every track in the session, which is kind of, I don't know why you need to solo every track. There are, when you think about it, they all play together. But I could also mute every track in the session by holding down Option and clicking on that M. I could also select a group of tracks down at the bottom, and then I could just solo that groups of tracks by holding the Shift with Option. Shift Option will just apply it to the group of tracks. So remember, Option will apply it to all the tracks. Shift Option will just apply it to that group of tracks. Let's come back here to the edit window now, and let's try and make a selection. Now, if I had a piece of the track that I was working on like this, I could click and drag and make that selection. What if I was working on multiple tracks? Well, I could click and drag and drag it up to the other tracks that I also want to make that selection on. What if I made that selection up here and I also want to make it down here on one of these lower tracks? Is there a way to transfer that selection down? And you can transfer it down. And the way you do that is by shift clicking. So I'm going to hold down Shift and I'm going to click. And now that selection is transferred down and it's skipped the tracks in between. So these in-between tracks do not have the selection. So if you want to take a selection you make and transfer it to a non-adjacent track, you shift click the track that you want it to go on. And you can shift anywhere on that track and it will go there. So I have the cursor over here. So shift clicking to transfer your selection to non-adjacent tracks. There's also this button here I want to talk about. I have it on right now. It's up here at the top, and it's called Link Track and Edit Selection. You may or may not have this on or off right now, but it's usually a good idea to have it on. When it is on, then it links your track and your edit selection. So first of all, your track is over here. It's the highlighted part. When your track is highlighted, that means that's the track you're working on. The edit selection is the cursor, the blinking cursor right here. That's the edit section. And when you make a selection like this, it's just that space. So linking the track and the edit selection means that it's always going to have your edit selection and track be the same track. When that is not on, you can turn it off and you start making these track and edit selection changes. Notice that now I have the track selected right above it, but the edit selection has not moved. So sometimes it could get confusing because you think you're editing the synth bass, but really you're back on the impact track because they're not connected. There may be times where that's a good way for you to edit and work, and there may be other times where it's not. So you just have to evaluate, but that's what that track does. It's called the link track and edit selection. I like to leave it on in my session so that whatever track I'm working on is the track that has my edit selections. So if I jump down with my edit selections, I will also have that track selected at the same time. Now we're going to talk a little bit about editing commands. Before I do, I'm going to say, I know that you probably already know some of the editing commands. You've probably done them, the most basic ones. We are going to start with those most basic ones really quickly, which are copy and paste and cut. Copy, paste, cut. And then there's also clear. I don't know how much you use the clear command, but let's do just a little bit of that. Copy, Command C will copy whatever you're working on. So if I click this clip right here and I go Command C, I can copy it. Now that it's copied, I can paste it somewhere new. I'm sure you've done this in your internet searches. I'm sure you use these commands. So Command V is for pasting. And now I have taken that clip that I selected, I copied it, and I just pasted it. That is super valuable. There's going to be a million times in your life where you need to learn that or use it. So hopefully that's feeling nice. But there is this option of cutting as well as copying. If I select this track and now I go Command X, I can cut this track. Did you see it disappear? So cutting will make the track disappear. You're cutting it out of place, and then you can select where you're going to put it, and you go Command V to paste it. So I've just cut and paste that track. And now the nice thing about that is it gets rid of it. Maybe sometimes something's in the wrong place, so you need to get rid of it and put it somewhere else. Or there's other times where it's in the right place, but you need to copy it and put it somewhere else. So anyway, those commands can be very helpful for that kind of thing. So along with those, there's also this option of clearing. Clearing is Command B. So when you clear something, I just want to emphasize to you that it is not waiting to be pasted somewhere. You can't paste it when you cleared. So if I go Command B, it'll be gone. It's cleared. And the other commands you're going to use a lot are the undo command and the redo command. Undo is Command Z. Once again, that's one you probably know and you should use a lot. So if you go Command Z, you can undo whatever the last action you did is. So Command Z will undo it, and then, oops, wait, I didn't want to undo it. I want to redo it again because I didn't mean to undo it. So if you hold down Shift while you do Command Z, it will redo what you just undid. So you can go back and forth, Command Z, Shift Command Z, Command Z, Shift Command Z, and you can undo and then redo whatever it is you need to do. So if you're making an edit, to make that edit, and then you're like, oh, I didn't mean to make that edit, I'm going to undo it. No, I did want to do that edit. Oh, I'm going to Shift Command Z and redo it. So anyway, it's good to know those two opposite commands. You're going to use those a lot as well. Now let's talk a little bit about the commands that allow you to edit a clip length or edit the content of a clip. And this command is going to be very important. It's the separation command, the command that allows you to separate things. I have a space here. I'm going to go Command E on this side of the space. Command E is a separation command or separate command. So I have just separated these two clips. What was one clip has become two clips. We essentially created a subset clip. It started as a whole file clip, and then when you start cutting it like this, you create subset clips of that whole file clip. So I want to get rid of this dead space right here. So I just edited right there, I just separated. I'm going to put my cursor here now. I'm going to do the same thing, Command E. And now I have another separation. Now I have this middle part here of dead space that I can delete. So now that's gone. I deleted it. I'm going to drag this over and put it right there. Let's do the same thing over here. I'm going to Command E, and I'm going to Command E right here. Oops, that wasn't the right spot to do it. Or actually, I don't want either of those edits. I just changed my mind for whatever reason. Wouldn't it be nice if there was a way to heal those separations and make it one again? And there's a command for healing. I'm going to highlight both of those edits that I just did and go Command H for heal. And now I did Command H. Now both of those separations are gone and my clip is restored. So remember Command H to heal a separation. So you can make a separation with Command E, and then you highlight it and you go Command H to heal that separation. Okay, but I'm going to edit out this dead space in between because I don't want it here. I'm going to delete that dead space. I'm going to put it over here. And now I have three new clips, three separate clips that are disjointed from each other. And the problem is if I accidentally move one clip, it's going to be off from the other two clips. So maybe if I have a lot of little clips like this, it could be cumbersome and I could trip over them. I could accidentally move one of them, and then timing issues are a result of that. So wouldn't it be nice if once you're done editing your clips, you could then put them all together back into one big clip? And there is a way to do that. We call it clip consolidation, consolidating a clip. I'm going to select all three of those clips, and you can get there from the edit menu and come down here to edit where it goes consolidate clip. But there's also this command here to do it. This command that is Shift Option 3. By holding down Shift Option and 3, you can consolidate your clip. Okay, I just barely took those 3 clips here and I put them down on a new track. I'm going to select all 3 of those clips and I'm going to do the keyboard command Shift Option 3. And then I get this rendering window that's there very briefly, but you'll notice that all 3 of those clips are now glued together in one large clip. So I consolidated it. What was 3 clips has now become 1 clip. So consolidating your clips is the cleanup work you do after you're done editing. It's just a great idea so you don't have all these small clips everywhere. You just consolidate them all and it makes one big clip, makes it easier to move if you need to move them together. You just have to move one of them instead. Now let's look up here at the top for a second at our main tool. Here our smart tool is selected. It's a great way to work is by using the smart tool. But there are some other options in these smart tools, and let's talk about the trim options. If you right click over the trim tool, you get standard, TCE, and loop. Each one of these trims does something cool and maybe unexpected. Standard is the normal one we use when you're normally trimming something. TCE stands for time compression expansion. And this is a great tool. It allows you to stretch a clip and keep the pitch the same. So you can stretch a clip. You can stretch a clip longer or shorter without changing the pitch of that clip. We're going to do that in just a second. And then at the bottom is loop trim. So you can use this to loop a track. And so, sorry, not loop a track. You can use this to loop a clip and you can just get on the end of the clip and loop that clip for however long you want it to go. If it's a repetitious idea, you can just loop it throughout the whole song. So first, let's try time compression expansion trim, TCE trim. Let's give that a try. So with time compression expansion trim, TCE trim, I can come over here at the end and notice how I have a clock there for the icon. I can click on the end, start dragging it to the right. And as I do that, I'm expanding it is what I'm doing, not compressing. I'm making the clip longer. And when you do that, it's going to drag the clip out for that new duration of time that you just expanded it to. Let's go the other way now. Let's compress that clip and let's try and make it shorter and see how that sounds when you do that. Time compression and expansion. So it's a really handy trim tool. You're probably going to use it the most if you're working on videos and you're trying to time it out. Maybe the video is 2 minutes and 30 seconds long and your audio file is 2 minutes and 33 seconds long. So you can use that TCE trim to just squish it all together and get that extra 3 seconds off of it so that it will fit the video file that it needs to fit. Let's give the loop trim a try now and see what that's like. I'm going to come back up to the top. I'm going to right click and select loop trim. And it does just what you think it will do. It will loop the clip. And you come over here to the the top right corner and you get that icon with the little curvy arrow letting you know that something's being looped. And you just start dragging. I'm dragging it to the right now, dragging it to the right, and zoom out a little bit. Okay, here's the new clip. I drug it to the right here, and notice that at the bottom, they have these little looped arrows here. These looped arrows tell you where the new looping starts in it. So every time you see the looped arrow, it's a new version of the clip. So I'm going to loop it again. So right now, I basically have 3 versions of this clip. From right here to right here, that's like one version of it, one iteration of it. Here's the second one. And then I have the third one over here. So loop trim is an easy way to take a clip and loop it throughout the whole song. Very handy for working with drum tracks or a drum beat. You've got like 4 bars of your drum beat and you click the loop trim and then you just loop it throughout the whole thing. But there's another way to loop a clip if you want to loop, and that is by using the keyboard command for it. Option Command L will allow you to loop any clip for however many times you want. You get this little clip looping dialog box opening up. It says 8 here. Okay, so let's have 8 loops of this clip. Push OK. And now we have 8 loops of it. We can't even see all the loops. You have to zoom out, and here's all 8 of those loops. I can undo that, Command Z, and do it again. Option Command L. This time, let's loop it 3 times. I've typed a 3 in that box, and now I have 3 loops of that box. So it's good to know that keyboard command as well for looping. Option Command L will allow you to loop any clip. There's other ways to repeat or duplicate your clips that we're going to talk about as well. And real quick, the duplicate command for a clip is Command D. If you just start pushing Command D, it will immediately duplicate the clip after itself. But notice that these clips are disjointed. There's a line in between each one of them. They're all separate clips. So because we're just duplicating that clip and creating a new one right there. We could also use Option R, and when you click Option R, you're able to repeat that clip, and it will ask you how many times you want to repeat this clip. Let's say 3 repeats, and then we'll create 3 different repeats of the clip. Kind of the same thing as duplicated clip, but maybe doing them all at once. Kind of the same thing as looping a clip. So there are 3 options here. There's repeating a clip, there's duplicating a clip, and there's looping a clip. Let's talk a little bit about nudging now. I don't know if you've ever heard this word nudge before, but it's a way of moving clips without clicking and dragging with your mouse. First of all, look up here at this window. You're probably most familiar with this window for your grid mode. When we're in grid mode like we are, this is where you configure your grid. You can turn your grid on and off by clicking this. And so if you want to see the bar lines for your grid, you can, but you could also turn them off. But right under that is nudge. And with nudge, in order for it to work, you do have to come to this drop-down menu and decide the value of your nudge. So right now I have my nudge set on bars and beats. That check mark means bars and beats is selected. So you need to make sure you have something selected there. And then I have different types of notes here that different lengths of the nudge or different increments of movement. Do I want to nudge in half notes and quarter notes and eighth notes? Currently I have it set to 16th notes. Let's change it to quarter notes. So I just set my nudge to quarter notes. And now if I come down to this clip, I can nudge it, I can move it in quarter note values. So let's zoom in a little bit so we can see this. And the way you nudge is by using your keyboard here, and you have the numeric pad side of your keyboard and plus and minus, and that's what nudges. So I'm going to hit the plus sign first, and that moves my clip to the right. I'm going to hit the minus sign, and that moves my clip to the left. So plus and minus will give you nudging powers. Okay, and then some of you probably have a keyboard where you don't have the numeric pad on the right side of your keyboard. It is possible to nudge without that too. And the way you do that is over here with the comma and period buttons right next to your space bar. And if you push the comma and period buttons, you can also nudge to the right and to the left, just like that. So nudging can be a very handy way to move a clip, especially in small increments, because sometimes with your mouse, it's hard to be precise. It's hard to drop it exactly where you want it. I'm going to change my nudge value again. I'm going to change it back to 16th notes and make it even smaller. So here I'm nudging in very small increments, because sometimes it's just a little bit. You need to nudge something this way or that way. And so you can set your nudge values, and you can use those keyboard keys to do your nudging. There's also another way to get around your clips, and that is by using the tab key. So with the tab key, you can put your cursor at the beginning of a song, and if you hit tab, you will tab from clip to clip. So this might be kind of hard to see. I'm going to try it again. Look at this blue arrow right here. This blue arrow indicates where my edit selection is. I'm going to hit tab. And now I'm at the end of that first clip and the beginning of the next clip. I'm going to hit tab again. And now I'm at the end of that second clip, beginning of the third clip, tab again. So when you hit tab, you can tab from clip to clip. So that can be a good way to get around there. But there's also an option up here called tab to transient. And that's this button right up here in the corner, arrow with a waveform on it. And it's a good idea to use that when you need to use it. But what this allows you to do is tab inside the waveforms of your clips. So very handy for editing. Maybe there's a part of your clip that you're trying to get to, but with tab to transient on and enabled, when you hit the tab button, it's going to tab from waveform to waveform within your clip. So here you see me tabbing, and you can see the edit cursor move from waveform to waveform. So let's say there is an edit I wanted to do, and I'm trying to get my tab just right. So I could tab it. So it's right at the beginning of that. I could go Command E, make a cut. I could tab right afterwards. And then I could go Command E and make a cut. And now I have cut out that little part of the clip that maybe I needed to get rid of it. So tabbing can be a very handy way to get around. It's important to know that you can tab forwards and backwards. So by holding down the Option key, you will tab backwards. So Option tab is the way to reverse your tab direction. And what if you want to make a selection as you're tabbing? Can you do that, or do you need to use the mouse and the cursor and drag? Well, you can always drag with the mouse. That will also work. But if you hold down Shift while you're tabbing, it will make a selection while you tab. And if you hold down Option Shift while you tab, it will continue to modify that selection to the other side of the tab. So holding down Shift will allow you to make a selection while you tab. And holding down Option Shift will allow you to tab backwards, but holding down Option Shift Tab will allow you to make a selection backwards. So the last thing we need to talk about for today is creating fades on your tracks. Fades are very handy for having a fade in or fade out of that track. When there's a fade in, the volume is very low and gets very loud. When there's a fade out, the volume is where it's supposed to be, and then it fades out to nothing. So at the beginning of a song, you'll do a fade in. At the end of the song, you'll do a fade out. Or at the beginning of a clip, maybe a clip is starting halfway through the song, but that clip is just coming in. It's a good idea to fade it in when it comes in. Another point you always want to do fades is when there's two clips end to end together, and they're disjointed from each other. They're two different ideas, kind of. You want to do what's called a crossfade there, and that will just help the editing sound. Sometimes when two clips are end to end, there's pops and clicks. But if you put a crossfade there, it will eliminate those pops and clicks sound. So it's a good idea to do that. So there's a couple of ways to do fades in Pro Tools. And the first one, the easiest one that I'm going to tell you, is to use the Smart tool for its fourth function. Smart tool has three functions, right? Grabber, selector, trim. Let's go ahead and change that back to standard. And the fourth function, which isn't mentioned here at the top, fourth function is fade. And did you see that box in the right-hand corner? And I just drug it. I just created a fade there. And so by hovering over the corner, you get the fade box, and you just click and drag, and you can immediately create a fade. For crossfades, you can hover at the bottom of the area where the two clips are end to end, click and drag up and out, and you can create a crossfade there. Notice that the crossfades are X's, because you're basically lowering the volume on the clip on the left and raising the volume on the clip on the right, and they're crossing each other while they do that. So anyway, that's the easiest way to start making fades, is to use the Smart tool and just grab the fades box in the top right, top left, or at the bottom in between adjacent clips that are right next to each other. But there's another way to do it, and that is by using the Command F command. If I highlight the end of this clip and use the keyboard command Command F, I get this, the fade out dialog box. And here I can customize my fade. I can change the shape of it. See how I'm grabbing it with the clip, and or with my cursor, with my mouse. I'm grabbing it with my mouse, and I'm dragging it, and I'm changing the shape of that fade. I'm pushing OK, and now I can kind of modify that fade a little bit. So if you do it end to end, you can highlight the end to end area, go Command F, and then the crossfade dialog box will open. Notice it's there, shaped like an S. We can use these modifiers here to kind of modify what kind of crossfade we have. You can also click on it and drag it one way or the other to try and make it better. Sometimes if there's waveforms here, you don't want to lose the sound of those waveforms, and you want the crossfade to happen before the waveforms happen, but you don't want to hear any clicks and pops. So sometimes you have to adjust it a little bit to get it to sound good while you're doing it. But then you just push OK. And last of all, let's suppose that we have multiple clips like this one here, and they're disjointed from each other, and we want to apply fades and crossfades and we want to apply fades and crossfades to all these tracks all at the same time rather than one at a time. Is it possible to do that? Yes, it is. If you select all the tracks and then come up here to the edit menu, down here at the bottom of the edit menu, you have the fades options, fades create. And basically this is called batch fades. When you're creating a batch of fades all at once, it's going to include fade ins over here. It's going to include crossfades. It's going to include fade outs. If you push OK, you can apply all those things simultaneously to your clips all at once so that you don't have to do it one at a time. Once again, a time savers, and so that it makes it easier for you so you can save times. So thanks for coming today to my Pro Tools video. I hope you enjoyed it and learned a lot, and I'll see you in the next video.